Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. Grays here. Y'all know what we do. Today, we here trying to just give you some insight on the Pokornyi hyper wheel. What I've done is I've taken the video that was about 8 hours total, somewhere around there, and I've condensed it to 20 minutes. I've tried cutting out little pieces that were irrelevant, and I've just sped it up so that it would just conclude in 20 minutes to hopefully help you to be able to stop, pause, and look along the way. I want to say thank you to the guys who've been supporting me from the beginning. Thank you for the members, you guys who have joined. Again, I appreciate it. We've had some new guys join. My guy Neil, my guy Glenn, Courtney joined. Like, I really appreciate you all. I mean, Todd, Norman, Matt, and Mr. Anderson. Like, 7 of y'all have decided to become Grays Racers. I appreciate that. So, welcome back to Grays Dynamics. So we're gonna speed this up. If you like this video, you like what I'm putting out there, please thumbs up, notifications on, and click the subscribe link. A lot of you have reached out about the different parts, what it takes, how long it takes, what would I do differently. Well, hopefully this video will give you some insight. So let's jump into it. Let's hit play, and let's really see what I did and where I made mistakes and where I would tell you to do something differently. So ignore the talking head on the screen. He doesn't matter as much as I do. So let's just go ahead and get into it. First and foremost, when you get it, when you order everything, the PCB comes with the translucent, transparent button, so you're good there, so you don't have to worry about that. And again, I would say order as much as you can from Pokornyi, simply because it makes your life easy. If you're the type of person who likes to put together stuff on their own, then by all means, you can order every piece separately by itself. But I wouldn't do that, simply because, again, some of the stuff they've already done for you on their PCB, they've already soldered all the parts onto the PCB. They've also programmed it as well. So that's a win-win. You don't have to go out and do something and spend more of your time doing something that really takes up more of your time. So as you can see, you have the little spacer that you have to put onto the Vocore screen. That is pretty simple. You simply glue it down, get some double-sided tape. I'd use a little bit of glue because it's not as flat when you lay down the display spacer. So make sure, again, you fold it down, double-sided tape, use some tweezers to get it off, and maybe a little crazy glue to glue in between the tape and the spacer so you know it stays down. The tape that I bought was pretty narrow, so when you're putting it on the back of the Vocore screen, if you get the thicker one, you can use one strip. When you stick it onto the back, again, there are black outlines on it, so it'll help you to be able to disregard all that. It'll help you to be able to put this screen right on there. Just be careful how hard you push at the end of the day. This was the hardest part for me. I'm gonna go ahead and pause here so you can kind of see what I did. So soldering all this and cutting all the wires, one thing I should have done better is I should have prepped better. So prep the wires before you start anything. Do all the prep you can, strip all the wires, cut them to length to make sure you have the right length accordingly, because by doing that, it'll make your life easy in the future. So cut everything to the right length, then start, stripping the wire and separating out. The soldering part isn't as hard as I thought it would be. And actually, one thing I will point out here is when they show you on screen here how they solder everything together. When I soldered everything together, for me, it was a lot harder. One, because I didn't follow directions. Follow the directions. What colors should be soldered where? I am telling you, it'll pay off tenfold. Especially when it comes down to this bottom piece right here. You'll see, and actually you can't see on my screen, so one of the things, let me actually move my camera out of the way, because this is going to be highly critical that you see, and I'll move me up a little bit further, because again, what's more important is you see these right here. These are the Hall sensors that you are going to have to solder. Make sure you map them accordingly. Look at the direction of the Hall sensor itself. It's not a complete rectangular square. It's got 2 groove sides. Follow the directions and make sure you solder them to the right parts, and then snap them out at the end and make sure you connect them to the right part on the PCB, because trust me, that's something that I messed up on numerous times. So make sure that when you start soldering the different areas, you pay close attention. The soldering part isn't as hard. You just have to pay attention. Leave yourself enough room after you strip the wire and start soldering things together. I am not an expert at soldering anything, but I did make sure I followed those directions as much as I can. And again, I got the soldering unit on Amazon for like $15. So, you know, wasn't too hard. When you're inserting the different little inserts, the to screw things in, I forget what they're called, I am sorry. But just be careful when you start pushing it in. I did have a sponge there to kind of try and cool it off, because what I've noticed is it gets really hot really fast, and that plastic, when you start sliding those inserts in, if you push too hard, it'll go too deep. But you also want to make sure you get it in and pull it out as quickly as you can. When you start to pull it out, it's going to try and pull back out. But again, just be gentle, take your time, be patient, and you'll be fine. It's not as hard as you think it is. And again, I had it about 350 C. It melts super quick. So, you know, the temperature for me, I had a cheap one again. It was pretty simple at the end. And I was able to get things done pretty quickly. So if you look, and what I'll do is I'm gonna stop here. So you see how these are flush inside here. They recommend you use 8mm screws in length. You can get away with 10mm. So between 8 and 10mm, you'll be fine. And again, it's something that I wouldn't worry about at the end of the day. You can see again how I've got all of the encoders. I've got the different GX12 for the power connected here. And again, by all means, keep things as cool as you can so it doesn't melt the plastic. And as you can see, that insert went well there. So yeah, so far so good. Make sure you have a vise, as you can see I have here. That vise is going to be really helpful when you start putting these sleeves inside, depending on how you go about your clutches and your paddles. I went with the sleeved option. You do not have to go with the sleeved option. I would recommend it. It's easier once you have the vise. You can start inserting things in. Here we're just going ahead and screwing down, and man, having that little handheld screwdriver, that was something that simple to do the different clutches and sleeves and things like that. Makes things a whole lot easier. Those are the switches that you're using to shift. Really easy to mount, nothing crazy, nothing amazing, just simple, easy, screw it down, keep it moving. And again, having that handheld screw definitely made me a lot helpful. The silicone mat you see there, I got off of Amazon. I definitely recommend it. But again, if you're smarter than me, yes, I was pulling things out of a tray I had next to me, but it has all those compartments. The next time I build something, I will have all of the screws already labeled what needs to be there, so I know what to do. Because the more organized you are, the easier this will go in the long run. I was not as organized as I could be, and that's where I think I made a mistake. But as you can see, I'm going ahead and putting the sleeves. After I've put the sleeves in, I'm now constructing the clutches itself. By having the vise, you have to insert a long little, as you can see here on the screen here, these little, I'm not sure if pillars or little, oh, I forget what they're called. Sorry about that. But yeah, you have to insert them in. So by having the vise, it makes your life easy. So you line it up, make sure they're aligned properly, because again, you don't want to break it. They are MFM plastic, the nylon, so it's much more durable than the lighter, easier use plastic like I went off for some of the parts in here. But you definitely want to make sure that when you start inserting it in, you have things lined up, because if that vise, again, like anything, can be wound too tight. As you can see, I've got the magnet in there, and it's pretty cool as you start assembling it. I will say this, as I was assembling it, I felt a little bit of accomplishment. And again, depending on what magnet strength you go with, I went with N35s. If you want a much more clicky paddle there, then I would definitely recommend that you get magnets that are a little bit stronger than what I went with. But again, if you double stack them, you get a much nicer click. To me, I don't think there's anything wrong with it now. But again, one of the things I would love to see is with Pokornyi to have options for some of these things to be CNC aluminum. They give you everything to 3D print and the different types of prints you can use. But to have an option for CNC for later down the line, if I wanted to go with some sort of aluminum, that would be cool. As you can see here, I've got all of the different paddles that attach that I got from Pokornyi. They include it in a nice little pack. When you order the silicone grips and you order the full kit, you get the front, the back, and all of the paddles with it, as well as the two that go on to the front of the wheel. And again, what you're seeing here is me assembling the clutch. I didn't have all the parts, and I would recommend, I ordered from AliExpress and I ordered from Amazon. AliExpress still to this day still hasn't sent all of the items, or they've sent them, but they're still in shipping. So if you're going to order from AliExpress, I would say give yourself plenty of time. I spent more money because I ordered stuff from Amazon. I would say after now doing all the sit down and research and looking at the wheel itself, I spent a good $800 on this wheel. $825 roughly. It can be done for $500 to $700 they recommend. Now granted, I think that recommendation is based on the euro and not the American dollar. But just depends where you get your parts from, where you source them from. Maybe you have some of the parts already. It definitely can be built, I would say, for $600 US. 500 seems like a stretch unless you have all of the materials to print everything at your house. And you're willing to go with some cheaper material for some of the parts. Again, just all depends on what you decide to do. But again, as you can see, I'm assembling the clutch and the sleeve. And again, having that vise definitely will help you. You don't have to have it. I'm guessing you can, lay it down, use a hammer and hammer it in there. As you can see, I went with the copper enclosure here. That to me was highly important to pick what enclosure I wanted on the wheel so it would look cool and unique to me. This is where, again, my guy Matt at the logo you see in your top left at Simulation RS, he can do enclosures, he can do the LED, he can really print everything you would need, depending on what type you want to go with. And I think it's MFA is what I got printed from JLPCB, because he doesn't, I don't know many people who have them just sitting at your house. He has, some really great 3D printers. So enclosures, LED button guides, he can print some of the other gear for you. And again, if you look through the Pokornyi directions on what you can and cannot do, some things can be printed for you by, again, my guy Matt at Simulation RS. But I want to show you something here. I'm going to pause it for a second. The top buttons that you get on the back here, okay? Now, here's where I made a mistake. You should put the top buttons on first when you start to get to the back and do the enclosure. Screw them in first, then solder. Now be careful because it'll be close to the plastic so you can melt it. But again, I would recommend screwing the buttons in first because trying to fit the wire in, yeah, not that easy. To get the end of the wire to feed through the hole because the hole's just not big enough. So I made a mistake on that. I do not want to see you make the mistake on that. So again, screw them down first, then solder on the inside. It's not hard to solder. It's just, again, it may be easier that way, depending on how talented you are. If you choose to do it the way I did, it was far more difficult to get it through the hole. So again, that's a decision you'll have to make yourself. Also, you can feed it through, then leave yourself some slack, solder it, and then screw it down. So completely optional, but again, if you choose to feed this through first, this little connector here, and solder it and then feed it through first, it will cause you a headache and you might want to throw the wheel out the window. So just saying. But we'll move forward here because at the end of the day, again, so as you're attaching the encoder, again, make sure you have the right tools for the job. Some of these tools I had to walk out and grab them because I just didn't have them sitting next to me because I wasn't prepared. That's the big thing I took from this overall, being prepared. I have more than enough screws to do all the different things simply because I ordered from Amazon. But as long as you have everything there, again, make sure when you start putting things on the encoder, you have soldered correctly, you've put sleeves over to protect all of those different items, and you've attached it properly. Again, making sure you have heat shields on every connector is going to be important, because by not having them, you can get some sort of interference. And trust me, I ran into that with my clutches, because I didn't solder it correctly and go by color, and then two, it didn't come out. I would get feedback because one of them was touching. So again, what you're seeing here is me just taking off the QR from my Moza QR. Now what you're gonna see here is, well, let me move a little bit forward. The Moza QR that you see here fits on the back, but when you start attaching all of the clutches and paddles, there's not enough clearance for the NRG style to fit and to be able to pull in close before you attach it to your base. So you're going to need a spacer. I have a 15mm spacer that I got from Turn Racing. I am pretty sure, again, my guy Matt at Simulation or us can probably print something up for you. But again, many of the things that he can print, you're going to need to give him specifications of what you want, because he doesn't just have files sitting around. You'll have to get with him. He does have some because he printed some for me, and he has them listed on his site, but you'll want to go ahead and get a spacer. Whether you need a 50mm or a 10mm or whatever, the 15 I've noticed is perfect. It gives me about, this much space in between, which actually I can show you here. If you look, the spacer is right here in between the QR where the orange ends and the spacer here begins. And that gives you enough space for the clutches and all of the paddles to fit and to not have any issues moving forward. So you're going to have to do that, or just have a longer spacer, which is completely up to you, especially depending on the type of QR that you have. So for me, this is what I had to do. Once I got it attached, and again, I had to take it back off because in that video, I did not put the spacer on until I realized, you know what, I didn't have every part. So as you can see, we're on to the next scene here. The next scene is me getting more parts in the mail and starting to move forward with connecting those different items. What you see down here, let me pause it for a sec. Down here, you're seeing these are the guides that go on the front. My sim hub is not, but yeah, my logo is not showing right. But over the buttons here is what you see right here on the screen. Those go over the top. You can actually get them in whatever color you want. One thing about 3D printing, remember tolerances. Things will fit not how you think they're gonna fit. If you look at the top of my wheel, you probably see there's some light bleed here. There's some light bleed here. There's a little bit of space because the screw that connects it together is in here, further in, right here, as opposed to being, and there's not one all the way on the outside on the edges to bring it closer together. So remember, 3D printing, tolerances, spaces, things are going to always be a little bit off. They're not going to be 100% perfect. Again, unless you get something, possibly CNC machined out of aluminum, and then you can bring those tolerances down to the micron. So again, you do have that option, but these also, I printed it in as MFA. Oh, good Lord, I'm going to get that screwed up a million times. So sorry if I am. But one of these things is you can have those printed in different colors depending on what you want moving forward. And again, as you can see, I have my little drill that comes in handy. Make sure it's charged. Mine died a couple times during the build. So it's one of those things I would definitely recommend checking, making sure your battery is charged. And again, making sure you have all the parts. As you can see here, I'm assembling the clutch. The clutches, again, are easy to assemble. The only thing that is annoying, and I'm going to tell you now, is putting the magnet in between for the clutches. I'm assembling paddles, clutches, and the additional paddles at the top. So you get 4 paddles that use the same housing, just different actual paddles to fit, and then the clutches here at the bottom. Again, the magnet for the clutches are extremely hard to, not the magnets, the spring. Trying to put the spring in there, once you connect it, you have to slide. Now you can cut the spring, so it's not as hard of a pull. I went with a pretty, I went with the spring that they recommended, and I didn't cut it because it works out well for me. But you might want something that's a little bit softer. These are definitely got some pull to it, so you're definitely going to want to make sure that you adjust accordingly. So try it. If you like it, you're good. If not, cut it, and then it'll decrease the strength of the spring. So again, as you can see here, I'm screwing together the rest of the paddles that I have. And again, using my little drill because it's the best thing. So I'm going to move this a little bit forward. Let's see where we are here as we start assembling clutches and paddles. And as you can see, I'm using the vise to put in the different sleeves. Now what you're seeing is me trying to put in the magnet. As I was saying earlier, I'm using a screwdriver to try and lay it flat to get it in there. That didn't work. I had to use my thumbs and kind of get in between and then push it in, because it's just really hard to get in. But you're gonna want to have some feel to it, and you're not gonna know how it feels until you put the spring in. So I recommend forcing it in. Like, you're gonna want to get it in there. As you can see, once you get it in there, determine what you want out of it, because at the end of the day, you may like it as strong as it comes, or you may want a little less strength there. So you're gonna have to decide what you want to do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this forward a little bit, because I didn't have everything, because again, wasn't a smart guy. Now I'm starting to attach the paddles and clutches to the actual back plate of the wheel. This is when I'm going to realize that, darn it, I'm going to need a spacer, because there's not enough clearance for the QR to fit and have the clutches and paddles go around it. So I was unfortunately doomed from the start, and you don't know it. And because of the way that this mounts, and again, it is the solution that Pokornyi have went with. It's not a bad solution. I just have used better solutions when it comes to mounting your QR. If you ever want to change the QR, as you can already tell, you have to take the front of the wheel off, all your encoders and the funky switches. You're going to have to take off the front plate, take off the PCB, then get to the QR to attach or detach it, based on how you attach your QR. If you have a, let me see here, if you decide to go with something like this and mount this to the wheel first, then you can do whatever you want. You don't have to take everything apart every single time. But I didn't want a 50mm spacer. I like it. It's nice and shiny aluminum red. It's actually cold. But I didn't want it. So for me, I want to mount my QR, which I got a nice red one here going for my new wheel that'll be here soon. Can't wait to show you. Yeah, I wanted to mount it directly to the wheel, and you know, you'll see the cool solutions that other companies that I like have. So again, one thing you're seeing me here is as I attach all of the clutches and paddles, I am using some medium thread lock. And the reason I say medium, I didn't use the maximum strength because I want to take it off at some point. So I would definitely recommend using medium. Don't go with the full maximum strength you can get in thread lock, because you might have to take it apart at some point if something breaks, if you want to change something. So I would definitely say that. What you're seeing me here is one you probably missed, and I'll go back in a few seconds. Let's go back. So when you're starting to put the clutches together, and you have to put the Hall sensor, you'll see this little hole right here. And that hole is where the Hall sensor is going to go. You're going to use hot glue to put it in, put some hot glue in so that it stays. Where I made a mistake is, again, make sure you look at the wires and what colors go where and how they should be connected. Because if you don't and you screw up, you have to be like me, an idiot, and now you have to take all the hot glue out, take out the Hall sensor, and then fix it. And I ordered a pack of 10 Hall sensors. I ordered extra of everything, literally. I only needed 2 encoders for the thumb encoders. I ordered 6. I only needed 2 Hall sensors. I ordered 10. I only needed, you know, a few items, and I always ordered more. I only needed 2 buttons. I ordered 5. Like, just because you never know if you're going to mess something up, and I did on multiple occasions. So thank God I had extra to be able to fix it. So again, just my recommendation from me to you. You want to make sure you have those accordingly. Let's see. Moving forward, let's take a look here. So yeah, we're assembling clutches. Now when we get to assembling the front, this is when everything starts to come together. As you can see, those button guides here, again, go back 10 seconds. Once you get them attached, it's It's really easy. On the other side is 2 self-tapping screws, and then on the front you actually have a nut and screw here. Get as many black as you can. I didn't have enough, so you can't see any of it on the front because they're covered up. But on the back, I would like to have put some black ones just for myself. But inside these holes here for the button, make sure that you may have to shave that down first before you start putting covers on, so it always dry fit before you do it, because I had to shave down the inside with a little Dremel and just shave it down, you know, for about 2 seconds to get the buttons to go in and to now have that nice wonderful click. So make sure you do that. But again, pretty simple. I got the whole kit, so as long as you have all of the necessary screws and everything to attach, then you're fine. And again, on these I put some thread lock, because again, this is what's going to keep the wheel sturdy, because you have those metal posts inside at various points within the wheel. So as you can see, you have 7. You have 4 down the bottom, 3 behind the glass. You're not going to see any of these because they're covered up by the covers that you get, as you can see me gluing on. I did not put them on in the exact perfect line, so you can see it's kind of off. So take your time. Again, you know, I'm racing, I don't notice it, so it definitely messes with my OCD. But again, it is what it is at this point. I'm going to go back for a brief second, because I believe I show a better close-up of the spacer that I put. Let me see if I do. I believe I do, at least I hope I do, so you can see, because I ended up having to put on, oh, there's the back of my head. That doesn't help you at all. Nope. All right, well, that's okay, I showed you. So PCB, make sure you connect everything again. Follow directions. Where I made a mistake is I didn't connect them properly, and it ended up costing me headaches in the future. I had to take off the encoder because I actually soldered it incorrectly and had to resolder again. Some of the mistakes you're going to want to avoid. I had some twist ties to tie things down. Make sure you have enough slack. So if it says 200 millimeter or 100 millimeter, you have enough slack in here for all these wires, because if you don't, you won't have things reaching properly. So once you start screwing them down, and again, on here you're going to see that you have the LED guides. They are in white to help funnel the light through. But again, you can do them in any color. You don't have to do them white. You can't see them anyway. But yeah, they recommend white. So, you know, my sponsor Matt at Simulation RS sent me some white ones. So, and again, make sure everything fits accordingly. And again, one thing I've noticed, and I should have taken, one of the guys, Sean, thank you for pointing it out, connect everything first. Once you have everything soldered, power, to see if it all powers on, to see if it works, because I would hate to see you get things powered on and it doesn't work accordingly. So as you can see now, I'm just attaching the PCB to the actual frame of the wheel. And again, some of the mistakes I've made, again, I tilted it up, right? So everything fell off. That was just smart on my part. The LED guides don't screw down or glue down or anything like that. So, you know, be careful with that. But as you can see, I'm trying to now test the screen. Again, test those things, plug them in before you ever get started, because at the end of the day, it will matter. I'm finishing up the last few touches as I get the wheel together. Now we're starting to assemble. Sorry for moving the camera in that video, but again, now we're just getting to the finishing touches, and now we've assembled the wheel. We're putting on the funky switches, we're putting on the encoders, and again, make sure you tighten them down the way that it needs to be. I've got the wheel connected here. We're going to look at the final screen here, and what I'm going to do is speak to one last thing, that there it is connected. These buttons don't click in this video because I didn't test anything beforehand. All it does is power on. I took the wheel apart 5 more times to get everything to fit properly. But overall, it's a great wheel. I absolutely love it. I would recommend it to anybody. I would tell you to prepare first before you do this so that you don't have any issues down the road. So hopefully this helps. I wanted to condense this down as much as possible. I try to get it all done in 20 minutes. I do apologize for going a little bit longer, but what I've noticed is everybody who's been reaching out, I think this will help you. And if you have questions, please reach out. Thumbs up, notifications on, and hit subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.